The time is right now. The place is right here. And the show, well, this is the hippest trip in pro wrestling podcast, The Chain Reaction. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the place where a panel of pro wrestling pundits pontificate on the positives and the problems of the pay-per-view or premium live event, which we just perused. We are back and better than ever for our first edition of 2023. So belated Happy New Year to everybody tuning in tonight, everybody who is not watching Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes go head-to-head out here on these streets. But for those who are tuning in tonight, we do appreciate you. So we've got a big reaction show to the Royal Rumble that emanated from San Antonio, Texas last night. But before we get into all of that, we have to introduce who is here with me tonight, of course. I'm the Godfather, Nate Milton, and I'm joined by the Chain Gang. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, this man is not only one of the true North nerds. This man is not only somebody who is always there whenever I throw up the Brent signal, whenever we need his wise words of wisdom, but I just checked this, folks. He is currently the IBF's number 2 ranked pound-for-pound Chittenden in the world right now, only trailing Jen, who was a former guest on the Rocky Maivia Picture Show. Y'all give it up. Y'all give it up for Brent Chittenden. Brent, how are you, my man?
I love your intros. It's a nice ego boost in the evening to start off the week. I am doing well, and I'm looking forward to talking some wrestling with you guys.
We are looking forward to the conversation, man, because I feel like we're going to agree on a lot of things tonight, but there might also come some debate. And when it comes to debates, there's nobody I'd rather have on my side, Brent, than this next man who is part of the Chain Gang tonight. He is one of my co-hosts on the NWA podcast over at Post Wrestling. He's been down with the Kings of Sports since day one. Y'all give it up for the angry intellectual himself, the mayor pro tem of Los Angeles, California. Some may call him Moderna Kris. Some may call him Mimosa Kris. But all I want to know is, can we rock? What's up, Doc? Kris Ealy, the professor, is with us. What's up, Kris?
Hey, what's up, man? It's been a long week with this planning for this wedding. And I had sciatica earlier in the week. I don't know where it came from. I just know I was down for the count after that, but I'm looking forward to talking to this 2023 edition of the Royal Rumble.
Okay. I know you got 20 minutes prepared on Omos's time in the Rumble, so we will get into that, my brother.
All right, I'm trying to pull up my notes because I did take some, so I'm just trying to pull them up.
Well, and speaking of a man who always takes notes during these premium live events, he is one of my tag team partners on the main event over at Place to Be Nation. Of course, Chain Reaction, a co-branded production of the Kings of Sport Patreon and Place to Be Nation. Give it up for the Podfather himself, ladies and gentlemen. The man who probably spent most of last night deleting all of his angry tweets towards Nia Jax because he knew we were going to have to talk about it this evening. Scott Criscuolo is here. What's good, Scotty?
Godfather, my man, it is always a pleasure. Brent, Kris, I will say that 20 minutes of Kris talking about Omos is about a 80th of the time he was in the match. So I'd rather hear him talk more about it than actually see him in it. But no, it's great. It's great to be here, guys. Always a pleasure. Definitely talking about this Rumble will be better than when I believe we all got together last year to talk about last year's Rumble, which was not fun at all. This one was a lot of fun. I do know, Nate, that you are officially adding a new category this year. Best number 30 entrant of the night. 1 year only that you're going to add that category. So, but it's great to be here. I'm looking forward to talking about it. It's a fun show.
Absolutely, brother. And yes, so the last time, because I did check and do my homework, Scott, the last time we all convened for the Chain Reaction, it was this time last year for the Royal Rumble, which was a show that had some issues. So we will see how we think about this show as in comparison to last year's. But before we get into our categories this week, we have to run down the card. So I will pull up the most accurate source of information that we have available in 2023, Brent, which of course is Wikipedia. And I will run down the results of the 2023 Royal Rumble. Our first match was the 30-man Royal Rumble match for the men. The winner, of course, gets a world championship shot at WrestleMania, and it was won by none other than Cody Devontae Rhodes, who tossed out Gunther, who was the Iron Man this year. Gunther started number one and went all the way to the end, but he couldn't get in the way, Scott, of that American nightmare, Cody Devontae Rhodes. Cody Rhodes is your winner of the Royal Rumble, headed to WrestleMania. Our next match is a match that I think Kris will undoubtedly have as his pick for match of the night. It was the Mountain Dew pitch black match where Bray Wyatt beat down LA Knight in 5 minutes and 5 seconds. Bray Wyatt wins with his assortment of goofy masks and cosmic bowling aesthetics and Uncle Howdy. So we'll get into all those shenanigans a little bit later. But Bray Wyatt defeated LA Knight in 5:05. Going back to the men's rumble, the time for that, Scotty, was 1 hour and 12 minutes for the men's rumble. Our next match saw Bianca Belair defend the WWE Raw Women's title against Alexa Bliss. Bianca wins that in 7 minutes and 35 seconds to retain her title. The next match was the Women's Royal Rumble match, which went for 1 hour and 2 minutes. Rhea Ripley was your winner, going wire to wire. Rhea Ripley headed to WrestleMania. And finally, in our main event of the evening, Roman Reigns, favorite performer of everyone in the world, especially Jermaine from Chicago, if Jermaine is watching this evening. Roman Reigns defeated Kevin Owens in 19 minutes and 15 seconds to retain the both of his championships. But that was more like a backdrop to the post-match, which we will talk about here in a little bit. Scotty got so choked up that he had to dip for a second, but he will be back, ladies and gentlemen. So let's get into our categories. So we've got a few categories that we run through each and every episode of the main event. And our first category is the best match of the night. And seeing as it is the Royal Rumble, we will call this category Royal Oil. Which match was the best match of the night? And let's go to Kris. Professor, what was your pick for best match of the night, brother?
Well, I'm probably just picking with everyone else. I'm gonna say Owens and Roman Reigns was the best match of the night. I didn't think any of the Rumbles were like offensive or anything like that. We'll talk about what the worst match was later, but the Rumble matches were by the numbers. You know, it wasn't they weren't like spectacular, but there was no way to go but up from last year, because that was atrocity last year. So I was, even though they didn't really move the world, they didn't change the world with this year's Royal Rumble. They didn't rediscover the wheel, or it wasn't spectacular, but I mean, Jesus Christ, I remember last year's, and yeah, this was a markedly better Rumble.
Okay, so best match of the night, Kris is going with Roman Reigns, Kevin Owens. Brent, what was your selection for the best match of the night?
I am agreeing with the professor. I haven't really watched WWE product steadily in quite some time, but I've been following the Bloodline storyline all the way through, and the match was really solid. The follow-up was really solid, and the fact that this is carrying on a storyline both to a natural and good conclusion, at least so far. We'll see what happens in the next couple months, and it doesn't have to reinvent the wheel. Like, sometimes expected is good. And like, we all knew where this was going from the get-go, and they went with it and just didn't do the standard WWE thing of the swerve at the end of it. But I really enjoyed the match itself. I thought both guys did really good jobs of carrying this story along, which for like in theory Kevin Owens is going to be dipping out of, and we're going to get it focused on Roman and Sammy at some point. So it was an interesting way of going through the motions, but also making it really exciting and emotional to watch.
Mm. I'll go next. And for me, I think, Brent, looking at match of the night, it's very easy to pick Roman and Kevin Owens, in large part because of that post match, which I'll get into in a little bit. Like, I think this has been some of the best storytelling that this company has done in a long time. But I'm going to shake things up a little bit and go to the Men's Rumble as my match of the night for a couple of reasons. Number one, as you mentioned, predictable is not always bad. Sometimes that's good storytelling if you set something up and then follow through in the conclusion. And I think that's what they did with the Cody Rhodes moment here in the Men's Rumble. There were a lot of good little moments within the Rumble. You know, Gunther going wire to wire. Like, they did some really cool stuff with Sheamus and Drew in the Rumble. The Lashley Lesnar interaction I thought was cool. The spot with Ricochet and Logan Paul, which, again, like, I don't know what purpose it served in the context of a Royal Rumble, but both of these men to go outside of the ring and then jump at each other in the middle of the ring, it doesn't seem like a sound strategy, Brent, but it was cool. The only thing I hated about the Men's Rumble, I think, was there was a kind of lack of surprises in terms of the entrance, but then also, man, I hate to say it, but for the second year in a row, we didn't get that Kofi magic, and it hurts my heart that Kofi didn't at least get to have some more fun moments in this year's Rumble. But other than that, I thought the Men's Rumble match was pretty well plotted out, and they pulled the trigger and went with the obvious choice, which was the right choice in Cody Rhodes. So that is my match of the night. Let's see. Scotty, what was your match of the night?
Well, you're thinking, based on what I'm wearing, what I think the match of the night was. This is actually the original. This was when he first went to NXT. This isn't even the current one because this logo's a little smaller. But no, actually, I'm not going with this, although this match is pretty great. I'm actually going to go with the Women's Rumble. I thought the Women's Rumble was the best match of the night. No disrespect to our man, Nate, Mr. Devontae. No disrespect to him. But the Men's Rumble had its moments. I had no issues with, obviously, I wanted Devontae to win, so I'm good with that. I got to say, Booker looked pretty damn good for a guy who was only in for 20 seconds, but that was just, to get the spin. Because I guess there was rumors on the internet that he couldn't do the spin-a-rooney anymore, so maybe he did it just for that, and it was pretty good spin-a-rooney.
And it was his home state, so I get it.
Well, yeah, exactly. So, but the Women's Rumble was so much fun to watch because other than your girlfriend at 30 and Mrs. Calloway hopping the barrier out of the blue, I was glad we didn't get any surprises at the Women's Rumble. Everybody in the Rumble was either a current WWE or current NXT. And that was what we needed. The women's divisions on both brands is enormous and all good, solid, deserving athletes. So I loved watching the Women's Rumble because you had all this greatness and all this young, exciting talent. I gotta admit, I like when your girl Nia was nose to nose with Raquel. That was pretty great. That was actually one of my highlights of the night. I love seeing Zoe Stark. I love seeing Shotzi. I love seeing Mia Yim. Or whatever her Manchin is that her name or Meineke?
Michin.
Whatever the Minch. Yeah, I loved all the Damage Control. All of the women were there, really. Even Candice LeRae, who, as most people on the PTV Wrestling Network know, I'm not a big fan of, but even she was was energetic, and the Women's Rumble just had this extra energy. That, and I got to be honest, maybe it was because, and I don't want Mrs. Smith to get mad at me. I think it was because we didn't have the usuals. Yes, we didn't. We had Becky, and we had Bailey, but we didn't have Charlotte.
Mhm.
We didn't have Ronda. Like we didn't, and I hate to say this, we didn't even have Sasha. Those anchors that you always feel like get into the match and have to look good.
Mhm.
Nobody had to look good in that Women's Rumble. They just wanted to look good. And the fact that, and I picked on my Pod Blast preview on the network, I picked Rhea to win. A lot of people think having her at 1 was kind of rinse and repeat. That's fine, whatever. I think I enjoyed the standing power of Liv Morgan. It was nice to see her be the one at 2, and I had no problem with both of them. They both deserved the ability to go over an hour. I was just so entertained by the Women's Rumble because of all the youth that was in it. And the roster was that's a Triple H Rumble right now. The entire roster, no surprises needed, except your girl and Michelle and I guess Asuka, but technically she counts. She's on the roster. She's just back. So
your girl Chelsea Green showed up for a little bit.
Oh, for a shot.
Got a cup of coffee.
About as long as Omos. But yeah, no, my favorite match, as much as I got my guy on, I'm gonna go with the Women's Rumble. I was just very entertained by it. I enjoy the lack of surprises, and I enjoy the fact that they literally used almost the entire WWE roster and the entire NXT roster to its fullest capacity.
Okay, so we had 2 for KO and Reigns. We had 1 for the Men's Rumble and 1 for the Women's Rumble, which I think, not to blow the lead here, Kris, but I think that just goes to show that this was a pretty solid card from top to bottom. And we'll get into that a little bit more as we get into some of our other categories. But let's talk about what wasn't solid. And I have a feeling, Kris, you are our political prognosticator here on the show. Every time there's an election, whether it's the presidential election or the midterms, you're the guy I go to because you have all the numbers and you can give me the best predictions. So, I'm not Steve Kornacki, but I have a feeling when all the counties are counted, we will probably have a consensus for the next category, which is the worst match of the night, a.k.a. the Rumble Fumble. Scotty, let's run it back with you. What was your selection for the worst match of the night last night?
It's hard to pick a worse match because every match was pretty solid. I don't think there was one awful match. To me, it's a weird tie. Obviously, the only gimmick in the history of WWE that was sponsored. I don't think we've ever had a Coke Zero Hell in a Cell match. But honestly, that match wasn't offensive. I hate to do this, but I'm gonna go with Bianca and Alexa Bliss, and not because it was bad. It just seemed very ordinary. Like, I'm glad Bianca won, and she earned it. And I love Bianca, but it wasn't like, oh my God, this is the best Bianca match ever. And on a night where everybody elevated, I feel like that match was just good. It wasn't crap, not by any stretch, but the everything else felt a little bit higher than that did. So on a night where everybody stepped up, I feel like Alexa and Bianca just had a good match. And on this night, just good wasn't good enough.
That's an interesting pick by Scotty. I can understand it. I can understand that selection because that was the runner-up for me for worst match of the night, and partly because, like Scott said, it just kind of felt like a Raw main event. Like, it was good,
exactly,
but there was nothing that elevated it. But also because of the elements that match had, that my actual pick for worst match of the night had. Like, there's a common theme here, and that's your boy Uncle Howdy out here on these streets. My pick for the worst match of the night was that Pitch Black match, not because it was terrible, but because it was like, it wasn't needed. Like I get it. You got this sponsorship, you got the bag from the Mountain Dew PepsiCo people, which after the match, Kris and I were talking like maybe PepsiCo might want some of that bread back because I don't think they got the return on the investment that they were looking for, Brent. But that to me was kind of the worst match of the night in the sense of, this is the first real match Bray Wyatt's had since his return back in October. And so, like, you've been telling me this story, this guy, you got LA Knight in the mix, and we just kind of got a nothing brawl. And it's like, I feel like it should have been more than that. So yeah, that's my pick on a show that was pretty solid top to bottom. Pitch Black gets my worst match of the night. What say you, Brent Chittenden?
Oh, I completely agree with you. I don't want to crap on Bray Wyatt because he's good and he has a lot of creative ideas.
Real quick. I want to send a quick shout out to our guy Kris and I's mutual friend SP3 over at True Hill Heat. Because he had a great show today recapping the Rumble. And one of the things he said about Bray Wyatt was he might be the greatest before the bell rings wrestler in the company right now, meaning like everything he does before the match starts is great. Like the promos, the vignettes, the music, like everything leading up to the actual match is great. And then when it's time to go bell to bell, his matches are generally kind of at best.
Yeah, and in terms of gimmick matches and shit like that, I really think it's you see this sometimes with film directors when they've gotten when they get like absolute power and over a movie and director's cut and all that stuff, it sometimes goes off the rails, and I feel that's the problem with Bray Wyatt is
# release the Wyatt cut.
Yeah. Oh God, no. The Wyatt cut of this, I don't. Ooh, it's almost like somebody's got to step in and rein back some of the ideas. And like this, this match looked cool for like a minute and a half, like while Bray was in there, like when they turned the lights off and his blacklight face paint like all popped up. Yeah, that's a cool looking visual. And then the rest of it was low rent Tron. Without a good Daft Punk soundtrack to save it.
I thought it looked like, and this is something that's going to date us, Brent. Like to me, it looked like back in the 80s when bowling alleys used to do Cosmic Bowling Night.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
That awesome. Or glow in the dark mini putt.
Yeah, I know places that still do the Cosmic Bowling. Definitely.
Okay.
Maybe that's why they got this match idea.
Yes. Bray Wyatt was out bowling one night, and he's like, you know what? This would make a good idea. And then he ordered a Mountain Dew from the concession stand and was like, even better.
Yeah.
Kris, are you gonna make it 3 for 4 and give the Pitch Black match your worst match of the night, brother?
Okay, so before I give my review of this, I will, in defense of this match,
okay,
I have had a Pitch Black Mountain Dew before. And if you have too many of those things, you will start seeing the shit that you saw in that match.
Okay.
It was like I'm already sensitive to caffeine. I can't do caffeine the way other people can do it. Like 1 cup of coffee, and that's why I don't drink coffee. It just has me so wired. But yeah, man, I'm not gonna be as kind to it because even in the bad reviews, are like, oh, to me that shit was horrible, man. I do not watch wrestling for Tron meets Cosmic Bowling.
Hey, Kris, come on, Kris. Let it play out, Kris.
Yeah, nah. I was reading an article. So one of my friends sent me an article earlier from our friends at What Culture, where this article was written in 2017, and it said why Bray Wyatt is one of WWE's worst creations or something like that. And the reasons that they stated are very applicable to 2023. Now, this isn't to say that Bray Wyatt is a bad performer or anything like that. This is just not it, man. And they just keep on. Like my biggest problem with Bray Wyatt is I don't see how anybody benefits or comes up in a feud with him. Like even Eli Drake. I mean, LA Knight. Even with LA Knight, I don't. I mean, outside of a payday for being on a WWE pay-per-view, I really don't see what this does for his career. You got your sponsorship on. This isn't the worst thing I ever saw in WWE, but it's like it just reinforces to me that even on a good WWE pay-per-view, that I'm not going to be able to escape this kind of bullshit, which is my biggest problem with the match. To me, this was god awful, man. The worst match of the year so far. I know there'll be worse than this, but nah, man.
So the pitch black match getting 3 out of 4 of the votes here for worst match of the night. But before we go to the next category, I want to come back to something on Bray Wyatt, and I want to get Scotty's opinion, because I feel like one of the things that the WWE wants to do is have Bray Wyatt fill that hole that was left when your boy Undertaker hung up the boots. But I feel like one of the issues with that is the Undertaker really wasn't the Undertaker until like midway through his career.
Right.
Like it took him a while to get to that point where he was the dude that would show up and, he'd be gone for 3 or 4 months and then he'd just show up and set up a WrestleMania program and you'd be hyped because it was the Undertaker. But the other thing is, I feel like Bray Wyatt, and this is to Brent's point, I feel like Bray Wyatt is like that movie director that needs the good editor or that good producer to kind of rein him back in. But he's also like Prince in the 90s when he was in that period where he was fighting with Warner Brothers. And when Prince finally got like his freedom, he would just release these massive double albums that had like 15 great songs on it, Scotty. But the problem was there were 35 tracks on the album.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to cut it down at some point. And I'm not saying dumb it down for the audience, not like Scott Steiner. You got to dumb it down because he comes from a highly educated university, but you've got to streamline it a bit. What are your thoughts on kind of Bray Wyatt and where he can go from here?
That's a great point. The other thing too is, Taker took a long time to get to that level. Taker was, to your point, Nate, Taker didn't become The Undertaker in 1992. Okay.
Nope.
From 1990 till maybe 2005, let's say 15 years. Taker was just a cool gimmick in the company. Was he a legend guy? Probably, but he was still active and he was still every day. To that point, he had only missed 2 Manias, 94 and 2000, both injury based.
Right.
94 was more like he needed a vacation because he hadn't had one yet, but 2000 he was hurt. In this case, we didn't get Taker until probably 2008, 2009. Probably when we were getting the Edge feud, and most definitely we just did it. We'll be doing it next month on the Place Be podcast on the network. WrestleMania 25, the match with Shawn. From that point on, he became Taker. You can't just hand Bray Wyatt Taker and be like, oh my God, we're going to get a great match every March or April. No, you gotta cultivate that. You gotta earn that. And that's no disrespect to Bray as a person, but that's pretty rough for him to get there. And now suddenly he's the guy just because his gimmick is similar to Taker's. You can't do that to him. There has been no time to cultivate that into a legend status. That's the problem. And now we got Bray trying to feel his way around to the legend level when he hasn't even come close to like everyday great level.
Right.
Like outside of that Daniel Bryan match, has he had like a great standout match?
Yeah, he's
exactly.
He's had good matches. I want to say something about this real quick because this has been, and this is a great place to get it off my chest. Bray Wyatt said like when someone asked him what did Undertaker whisper to him, and he was like, "Oh, I'll take it to my grave and I'll never tell anybody." I don't care what that dude said to this guy. I don't. I prefer him to keep it to everybody because I just don't care. I don't care. I just needed to say that because there were people that were like, oh, who cares? Put on better TV, my dude. I don't care what people are whispering to you. SP3 did the whisper saw joke yesterday. He's like, but yeah, I just don't care enough about that, and I think that's the biggest problem with Bray Wyatt is he has done so many things on television that I do not care about because, like Scott was saying, Undertaker, the stuff he was doing, his first 3 WrestleManias. First one was against the aging Superfly Snuka. The second one was against Jake the Snake, who was on his way out of WWE. And the third one was against Giant Gonzalez. These were not good WrestleManias. I don't even think they mattered until about, not even with the first time he fought Triple H, but like maybe the Orton one, I thought was like, okay, this streak means something. And I think that with Bray Wyatt, it's an Undertaker, even with the corny stuff, it's still mattered to some people. I mean, I do know some people care about the Bray Wyatt stuff, but it was the stuff that Taker was doing was never like, I never felt that it got in the way of anybody's anything, you know. It was used to kind of elevate Yokozuna and have little nothing feuds with, like, you know, I'm blanking on the guys he was feuding with in the 90s, like Kama and
Nathan Jones.
Nathan Jones. Yeah,
well, that's a little later.
Yeah, Bray Wyatt's stuff like interferes with money-making main eventers, you know, and that's what bothers me about it. Not saying Eli Drake is one, but just like with Seth Rollins and people like that, you know.
Yeah, and I think, Brent, I'll let you have the last word on Bray before we move to our next category, but I think Bray, to me, to use another analogy, feels like you go to this restaurant, Brent, you know, maybe you know, it's Smoke's Poutineery up in your neck of the woods, or Swiss Chalet, these fine establishments, Brent Chittenden. I know a little something about the restaurants in your area. Maybe you know, it's Tim Hortons. Then that's the extent of my knowledge or my recall on these Canadian restaurants. Harvey's, that's another one. Harvey's. So it's like you go to this restaurant, Brent, and the side dishes are excellent. And the soda is like out of the fountain. It's the freshest soda you've ever had. But the main dish is always undercooked. That's how Bray Wyatt's feuds feel to me. It's like the stuff around it usually is pretty good. But when it comes time for these big matches, whether you're talking Seth Rollins or Dean Ambrose, you know, the Randy Orton match where he put the worms on the mat, you know, like these matches never have really delivered for me outside of that Daniel Bryan match.
I would agree. I don't know what it is because, like, we've seen him wrestle and he can wrestle. He's good in the ring, or at least he was. Maybe, like, you know, he's had nearly a year off for this match. But so 2 things. Like, one, I completely agree with you. It's that, and like in this case with this feud, it almost feels like he had too much going on. Like there was the stuff with LA Knight, there's the stuff with Uncle Howdy. Uncle Howdy is involved with Alexa Bliss. Like it's sort of like we should pick a lane here and stick with that, and then like later down the road maybe go to those other storylines. It just sort of and like. And for whatever reason, he is cursed with bad lighting matches. Remember the one that you said where one of the Fiend matches where it was all red and you could. It was. But I will disagree one small thing with Kris. This match did elevate somebody in that company, or maybe outside of that company, and it is the gentleman or a gentlewoman or person who sold WWE a shit ton of yellow cloth for outfits. May I point out, LA Knight's trunks was that made out of that yellow. Edge, who I don't think I've seen Edge in a color other than like red and silver and black in the past 20 years, somehow got talked into having neon yellow in his tights. It looked cool, but there was that. Logan Paul's outfit was made out of the same stuff. Liv Morgan's outfit was made out of the same stuff. Whoever it was who went into WWE and like, look, I've got the deal for you on neon yellow stuff. Does it react to black light? Hell yeah, it does. We'll take the whole roll. And then
I feel like it was a tribute. It was a tribute, Brent. The roster was showing solidarity for Naomi. Like, she can't be here, but she's in our hearts and in our wardrobe.
And they even had the pitch black Mountain Dew logo like on the ring stuff. And I know Vince has always been against that, but they had it.
And we got to make money for this sale, Kris.
Yeah.
Poor Sasha Banks' husband was like, his creativity was put to the brink when he was here.
Yeah.
How many outfits? As many as you can.
Right. Yeah.
So yes, that's our tangent on Bray Wyatt. So again,
you can do a whole show on just this match.
Yes, I mean, here's a funny trivia note for the Kings of Sport, because this is our 10th year anniversary this year of the Kings of Sport. One of the moments that almost broke the show, and this is back in like 2013, 2014, is an argument that Marcus and Alfred at the time got into over Bray Wyatt. And it damn near broke the show because Bray Wyatt has always been kind of like, what are we going to do with this guy? So again, I think we all respect him as a performer. Like, we all respect him as a creative person, but the storylines just haven't been hitting. So hopefully they tighten that up. But Brent mentioned that the person that designed all these outfits might be seeing a bump in their tax returns this year. So let's talk some money here. Let's talk about our stocks of the night. So first up is our blue chip stock. And what the blue chip stock is, for anybody that hasn't seen the chain reaction, it's the performer we feel like benefited the most and has gained the most from their performance at the pay-per-view or the premium live event. I'll never get used to saying that. So let's start with Scotty. Scott, who was your blue chip performer from the 2023 Royal Rumble?
Wow. Well, I mean, there's some obvious ones and there's some not so obvious ones. I got a couple.
Okay.
First one is obviously it's I guess it's like a cop out, but you got to give a blue chip to Mr. Devontae Rhodes. He got his moment. He got the moment he earned. He earned it. And he looked good in the match. I thought him and Gunther, they'll probably wrestle at Elimination Chamber most likely. That not only do you get a win for Cody, not only does Gunther look good, but you could set something up and those two could wrestle at Elimination Chamber, to give them something to do.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give the blue chip stock to a pair of guys. Obviously, not only will I give a blue chip to Sami Zayn because he finally pulled it off, and the pop he got when he smacked the Chief with the chair. But I'm going to give blue chip stock to this guy right here because nobody ate more plates of crap last night than he did. And not only did he sell it like a champ, because I mean he was getting smoked over and over again, but he gained a ton of sympathy. I think for his specific character, I think Kevin Owens came off like a stud last night. He smacked Roman around during the match. He took a good beating, and I think that post match, I mean, he sold it like Shawn Michaels used to sell his best ass kickings. He was top flight. So my three blue chips, Cody Devontae, even though that's kind of a softball, but I think Kevin Owens deserves just as much blue chip as Sami Zayn does for that last segment. And
Okay.
actually, I'm going to throw a little side to Roman Reigns.
Okay.
Finally, he's legitimately getting booed.
Yes.
He's fun. He was cool. It's like, yeah, the Bloodline at times kind of had that NWO 97 thing going on where it's like, yeah, they're heels, but they're kind of cool. They are not cool anymore. Not after last night. And I think it took this long, but Roman finally got over as now he's just a jerk off at this point. Finally, he got that out now.
Right.
So I'll give him a little bit of that. But my main blue chips, Devontae to the side, because that's a gift, is not just Sammy, but KO as well, because he came off looking like a valiant babyface that could be very valuable in the next 2 months.
Okay, I like those picks, Scotty, and I'll go next because I want to piggyback off of what you said. I think you can give honorable mentions to everybody involved in that post-match scenario. Like, I think KO did a great job. Sammy, obviously, did a great job. Roman, as you mentioned. I think the person maybe that was most intriguing to me in that post-match was Jey Uso, though.
Right.
Like, I think Jey Uso and Roman Reigns and Jimmy, like, they had that. Jimmy and Roman looked at Jay like Nino Brown looked at G Money at the end of New Jack City. Like,
yes. Oh my God.
We all we got, CMB. Like, I think that, like, so the story of KO and Sammy, because I think what's going to happen, because I know a lot of people want Sammy to go after the world championship, and I think he will get that title match at Elimination Chamber. But to me, the bigger story is Sammy and KO coming back as friends and going after the Usos for the tag titles. Yeah. I think there's more emotion in that story. So I'll give everybody in that post-match segment an honorary mention. Obviously, Cody Devontae Rhodes gets an honorable mention. I want to give an honorable mention to Rhea Ripley. I thought she looked fantastic in the Rumble. I want to give an honorable mention to somebody here because Kris knows we've had this conversation off air. Like, the last year has just been kind of exhausting for me. And I didn't know, Kris. It was like a fog was over my eyes. And I didn't know if it was because, the workload kind of going full steam ahead now that we're kind of post-pandemic. Yeah. I didn't know if it was, working 40, 50 hours a week, plus doing all the podcasts, plus doing my freelance work, plus doing the broadcasting. I didn't know if that's why I was feeling so down. I don't know if it was, kind of the political of what's going on in America, particularly like this week was rough. We're not gonna get into that, but it was a rough week for me. Kind of emotionally trying to feel happy in a world where some certain things can happen. So there was a lot weighing on me, Kris, for the last year, and I didn't know what was going on. But last night, it felt like, it's still Sunday, so I could take us to church, Brent. It felt like Paul on the road to Damascus when the scales fell from his eyes, because as soon as I saw who came out in that Women's Royal Rumble at number 30, the scales fell from my eyes. The weight was lifted off my back. I could see clearly now the rain is gone because Nia Jax is back where she belongs, and all is right with the world, ladies and gentlemen. I know a lot of people were underwhelmed by the fact that Nia Jax came back. That was one of my favorite moments of the night, not only because of how happy it made me, but because of how unhappy it made a lot of other people. So Nia Jax, obviously, I'm a nihilist all day. Hashtag nihilist Brent Chittenden. Nia Jax gets my honorable mention for the blue chip stock, but I'm going to give it to one person in particular who I think rose his stock the most, because you could argue that Cody was already at a level. You could argue that Roman and even KO and Sammy to a certain extent were already at a level. For me personally, Nia Jax was already at a level, but I think the person that elevated their stock the most last night might have been Gunther, because this is a dude that we all loved from NXT when he was Walter. And, they brought him up to the main roster, changed his name, named him after a dude that trained lions in the Ringling Brothers Circus. That's the headcanon I'm going to go with, because I don't want to associate with the other reason why he might have that name. They slimmed him down. He got on that Atkins diet or the keto diet. Brother was out here looking slim. But for him to go wire to wire and, make you believe, like, we all knew Cody was going to win this thing, but there were points where I was like, they they could. Maybe I could see it. So after the match last night, I think Gunther is somebody who we always thought should have been a main eventer on this main roster, but that was the step he needed. You know, I got the Avengers on here in the background because I don't want to look at the playoff game because I don't want to get too excited on the air. But there's a moment in the Avengers, Brent knows this very well, where Agent Coulson, spoiler alert, is killed. And Sam Jackson throws these bloody trading cards that Coulson had in his pocket, allegedly, on the table in front of Tony Stark and Steve Rogers. And then Maria Hill's like, those weren't in Coulson's pocket. And Sam Jackson's like, they needed the push. And I think this was the moment where we finally got to see that push for Gunther. And it would not shock me if, like Scotty said, we get that rematch we get that match at Elimination Chamber between Gunther and Cody, or if they hold it off until Cody wins the title. And I could easily see Gunther as kind of that first big opponent for Cody Rhodes. So for me, Gunther, you know, there was a lot of good choices to pick from on this card in terms of blue chips. I think Gunther's my guy. Brent, what was your choice for the blue chip performer of the night?
It's hard for me to argue with you about Gunther. He's my runner-up for blue chipper and very close runner-up. He got to show everybody else what we've known for quite a while. But we've always talked about like sort of the semantics of what like of the blue chip, right? Of being elevated. And I think for me, the person who got elevated the most out of it, like in a lot of ways, was Piper Niven. Her return last night came in, was treated really, really well. They've given her back her name. She's no longer Dewdrop, which was kind of a dumb name to begin with. But she was even getting that over. Like she got saddled with that name and was doing well, and then had to take some time off. Came back, and they gave her enough in that Rumble where I don't think there was any question who was going to win the Women's Rumble from the get-go. But it did give her a really good showing in it. It matched her up with a bunch of different people during the match, which showed off how good she is at her level, and that she should be taken more seriously as a character going forward. And I really hope that happens for her. It's nice to. One of the things that I will always criticize WWE, and it's gotten better the last couple of years, is while they've moved away in the women's department from the fitness model department of trainees, is it also doesn't seem to matter. A lot of these women end up going into that cookie cutter mold, even though that's not where they started. Right. When Dana Brooke came out, I hadn't seen her in quite a while because, like I said, I haven't really watched WWE's week-to-week television. I didn't recognize her. For a couple minutes there, I wasn't sure if it was Carmella or just because when she started, she was blonde, but she had a bit of a different look to her. And now she kind of looks like every other blonde that's on the roster.
Right.
And that's what I like about some of the stuff with like Piper Niven and Raquel Gonzalez. And like we're starting to get a nice mix of different types of women wrestlers in it, which is needed, I think, in a lot of ways. And Piper, hopefully she gets I'm not saying throw her in the main event right away or anything like that, but I think her coming back, they instantly made her somebody to watch out for the next little while, and hopefully they can follow up on it.
That is an excellent pick by Brent Chittenden. I had totally forgotten, but yes, the fact that they gave her name back and also allowed her to do what she did in the Rumble, I hope this is finally them starting to get behind this performer because we know she can do it in the ring. Kris, who is your blue chip performer and why is it Omos?
Funny. For me, I'm actually gonna go with Cody Rhodes, man.
Okay.
And the reason why is just because I remember how.
Is it because it's almost Black History Month and Cody ended racism?
Well, aside from that, I remember just the go away he was getting on AEW television. Nobody wanted this guy around. He was getting booed.
This man set himself on fire and people still booed him, Kris.
Yeah, he set himself on fire. People booed him. I mean, it had to be very disheartening for him. So he was able to. The more I think about it, I don't think he really had any huge beef with TK or anybody, any of the elite guys or whatever. I'm sure there's something there, but I think the main reason why he left was because he was able to read the tea leaves, and like one of the things he said was it was time to leave the territory. And this is what
he's his daddy's son.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what I think is going to happen with him. And I've said this from the beginning. He's going to encounter that same kind of heat eventually when the Cody Rhodes party is done in WWE. And I think when that time comes, he'll probably go back to AEW or whatever. But I think that that him going back to WWE was a brave thing to do, especially considering that he was doing the Stardust stuff before he left WWE, and he hated it, and he rose his stock enough to be able to go back to WWE. WWE needed an AEW guy, a prominent AEW guy, to go to WWE, and he was the instant kind of, okay, if you're from AEW, you could possibly come here and not be buried. And I think that and he had Ricky Starks with them last night backstage. Didn't appear on TV, obviously, but I think he I have a lot of respect for him to be able to kind of, I mean, I know they were throwing the money at him, but betting on himself enough to realize that maybe he could be refreshing to this WWE audience, because like in AEW, he was that the feuds he was having towards the end with Sammy Guevara and even the
Black.
Malachi Black and stuff. Those feuds were not that great, and, he hasn't really done much in WWE, but I think that he's going to have a promising 2023, and I think he'll have a promising 2024, and then by 2025 it's going to be like, okay, Cody, it's time to go. But I like his prospects for the next couple of years.
Can I throw on a little addendum to that?
Yeah,
it's interesting to see, and I think it's good for the industry on a whole, and for WWE's image a little bit. Is you look at that show last night, and it was Cody who had gone back from AEW, and the two of the other big performers of that show, Sammy and Kevin Owens, were both re-signed last year, where there was the whole thing online of like, oh, why would they re-sign? They're being treated like crap.
Yeah,
right.
For Sammy, probably one of the best decisions he's ever made in his career.
Right.
Like whether it was going to be that way from the get-go or not, who knows? None of us work at that company, and none of us know what the plans were while Vince was there. But at the same time, is like both those guys did the decision based on whatever. Part of it was definitely money, but other part of it was something else. And all three of those guys have proven that like AEW might be the promised land for some, but WWE can be the promised land for others, and which is a real good thing for the industry on a whole.
Yeah, I would agree. And I like a lot of what Kris said about Cody Devontae Rhodes. I think those are some really good points. And yeah, I feel like Cody is still pretty over with this crowd. We saw the reaction last night. I think they were really smart not to put Sammy in the Royal Rumble.
And that's the thing, too. It was no guarantee that he was going to, that the fans wouldn't.
Uh-oh.
He muted himself.
Vince cut Chris's mic.
How could he do that from the... You were on a roll there. I think you muted yourself. He's still talking. He's still muted.
We can't hear you.
There you go, Kris.
There we go.
There you go.
There you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no,
Vince shut your mic off because you were talking trash about the pitch black match.
No, and I was saying that there was no guarantee that Cody Rhodes was going to get cheered last night. You know, I mean, especially if those fans were like really clamoring for Sami Zayn, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that those fans cared enough about Cody Rhodes to where they've done right by him in WWE, and that's just I can say that's a fact. So far, they've done right by him.
Yeah. So real quick before we move to the penny stock, I will throw out another honorable mention, Scotty, to your girl Chelsea Green, who probably made a nice check for 10 seconds of work. So shout out to Chelsea Green out here on these streets.
She'll probably make more money last night doing that than her husband will in 2 weeks at NWA. Enough said when he wrestles Tyrus for the NWA world title.
This might be the only time I think I'll be cheering for Matt Cardona. Like damn it, Billy Corgan, you finally backed me into the corner where I have to recognize Cardona as champ.
Right? Yeah,
pretty much.
Well, let's go to the penny stock, and the penny stock is the flip side of the blue chip stock, and the penny stock is whose status was diminished the most from their performance last night, and it could be something outside of their control in terms of why their stock was diminished. It could be the booking, it could be the match itself, it could be the outcome, but that's all left up to the discretion of our panelists here. So Brent Chittenden, who is your penny stock of the night?
Okay, so I was on, maybe you guys can correct me. I was under the impression that Chelsea Green is signed with the Fed. Is that true or no?
As far as I know, she is. As far as I know, she signed a deal. I don't think this is a one-shot thing.
So if that being the case, with her being signed, boom, that was like the worst thing for her.
I'm picking up what you're putting down, Brent,
because I thought she had signed, but there was a bunch of people that were like, "Oh no, it was a one-shot deal or whatever," along with Nio being possibly in one-shot deal, which also seems to be up for debate. But I think if you are returning to a company and you are thrown out within like record-setting time, it doesn't look good for you. Like I know it's not their fault per se, but at the same time, it's like now for the next however long they have to deal with that sort of stink on them, and sometimes that can be hard to get off. And I think in Chelsea's case, she has shown in the past that she can do some good character work. I'm very curious to see how she can rehab this into something workable for whatever angle they have planned for her next. So for me, that she's probably the biggest drop because she's a returning character that has sort of made a name for herself in the last little while, and with her husband and his crew of guys, and there's a little bit of steam. I don't know how much WWE fans are aware of that steam because I'm sort of outside that bubble. But if there was steam, it has now been let go, and she's got to sort of start from scratch from here on out.
That's a really good pick, Brent, that I didn't think about. Scotty, who is your penny stock of the night?
Is he muted too?
It says the host muted my mic, which means Nate knows who my penny stock's going to be. So it's going to be
tread lightly, Criscuolo. Tread lightly.
I mean, we could say, let's be honest, Nate. We could say that Nia Jax kind of had the same, but
insert the Uncle Phil gif. We.
But no, I mean she still looked big. It took 7 women to knock her out. So I know I won't count that.
And she's got a new shirt out on WWE Shop. So
they already gave her a new shirt. So by the way, incidentally, on a side note, before I get to my penny stock, has anybody looked at the shop lately? I think Cody Devante has more T-shirts right now than Steve Austin ever had in 20 years. I feel like he's got like 9 shirts right now. It's crazy.
Oh,
they
all those leftover pro wrestling tees designs that
exactly.
He had in there. They were already paid for.
Pretty much.
They
bought them all. Yeah, they bought them all already.
Which is another reason why Sammy is not going to win the championship because, from a business standpoint, Scott, it doesn't make sense. Like you've invested a lot in Cody.
Yeah, exactly. We'll get to Sammy in a few minutes. But my penny stock, because I got to be honest, I didn't see a lot of disappointing performances last night.
Right? Yeah,
it's not easy to give a penny stock. I'm not going to give it, even though I did not love their match. I will not give a penny stock to Bianca Belair. She doesn't deserve that. She's been a great champion. I personally think. Well, we'll get to down the road in a minute, but I'm going to give a penny stock to LA Knight. Because after that match, where does he go? Like, where does he go? I mean, he wasn't in the Rumble.
Back to Max Dupree.
Or just go back to NWA and be Eli Drake. Yeah, where does he go? Like, I'm a little confused now because, he was not in the Rumble and he didn't win that match. So where does he go? Do you put him in the chamber to kind of rejuice him a little bit? Do maybe... well, I mean, I don't know. What is Austin Theory? Is he a face? Is he a heel? I don't even know at this point. I guess he's a heel. I have no idea. Maybe you kind of put him in a program with him. I wouldn't put him in a program with Gunther for the IC belt. Gunther, I think right now has bigger fish to fry. I don't know. I mean, I got to be honest. I'm not sure who to pass the penny to, Nathaniel. I'm a little perplexed because nobody really came out flat last night. It's
okay.
Yeah, it might have been the lack of matches because I mean, was there anybody in the Rumbles that I mean
I've got one from the Rumbles that I'll get into here in a second.
I've got a couple, but
I mean, Braun Strowman, I mean, did he really look any good? I mean, he's all right. I mean, I gotta be honest, I hate to do this to DKE. Omos was kind of terrible last night. Sorry. I mean, here's Omos's problem. I said this
how dare you insult Chris's favorite performer?
Chris, based on the jerseys,
Omos is going to escape my wrath for this pick.
Based on the jerseys behind him, I know Chris has much better tastes than that. So, Omos. The problem with Omos is he's an odd-shaped guy, so. He's intimidating, but he kind of looks like Tree Rollins with an extra 9 inches. Like he's not intimidating. He could be a good backup center. You know what I mean? But no, he's not ready for this yet. I don't think he's ready for this yet. And I think they're just sticking him out there. And no disrespect to MVP, Mr. Vontavious. No disrespect to him. But it's like he's not ready for this yet. So sticking him out there just because he's big, this isn't a video game. You can't boost him after 2 matches. Like that's not how this works. Right. So I gotta have to give a penny stock to Omos, not for the for the jokes aside, of course, because they are funny, but because he's just not ready. He doesn't know how to give the faces. He does this he does these weird faces. He's just not ready for this yet. There's not many big men. Let's go back through history, guys. There's not many big men that got it out of the gate. Big Show was one of them. Came right out in 95. I'm the Andre's son, which was kind of stupid, but I guess it fit at the time. Yeah. And immediately went in on Hogan, and it worked.
Yeah.
Everybody else needs a little seasoning, and Omos is far from seasoned. There ain't enough cayenne or lemon pepper on that piece of meat. He is not seasoned yet. So just throwing him out there to be intimidating because he's big is dumb. And you know me, I can't, Nate knows I can't, as the nanny, I can't disrespect my boss, the Levesque family, while I watch their 3 daughters. But let Omos breathe a little bit.
Mhm.
Let him go on SmackDown, get a run, beat up some bums, and elevate him. And maybe after Mania, he could be a guy that goes after something. But to stick him in the Rumble just because he's the big dude, he looks like a dope. And so
the best thing for Omos, I think, Scotty, would be if they reform the Hurt Business and he's the enforcer.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a. I don't know who the baby. I mean, are we guessing that Lashley is the heel that is going to be the heel in this Brock feud?
Not to me.
Yeah, because to me, he hasn't said anything that's heelish. To me, he's been the good guy. But
so I mean, how about this? Maybe Omos gets a taste of the man beast, of the next big thing, of the it comes to pain, Cole. Maybe he gets that right now, because that might not hurt him to get a little bit, to get to get an. I mean, that'd be an amazing F5, those giant legs flailing in the middle of the ring. That'd be outrageous.
The suplexes.
Oh my God, imagine me suplexed over the rim. No room. He'd have to do it from, and he can't. I mean, it's crazy. It'd have to be diagonal from the corner, because if he doesn't,
that's the day he almost died.
Yeah, his legs will like snap under the ring, under the rope. I don't know. My point is, I'm going to give it to Omos only because he's just not ready yet, and you're putting him on a stage where he's supposed to come up with these faces, and he doesn't have that it yet. And I think he will. I do think he will. I don't know how long it's going to take, but he just didn't have that it. And he kind of looked.
And it would be one thing, Scotty, if this were like Rumble's past, where you had about 10 guys in every Rumble that were just kind of filler. And almost could like toss those guys. We didn't really have that.
Carlos Colognes, yeah, pretty much.
We didn't really have that last night.
No, we didn't. Not at all. No, we didn't. So he just looked. He just wasn't. He looked, even though he was like one of the biggest dudes in the match, he clearly was the one that was not. He was not ready. He was not in there yet. So I'm gonna have to give it to him. I'll give him the penny stock.
So Kris, after Scotty has slandered and libeled and defamed your favorite, your best performer of 2022, the giant Omos. What say you? Who is your penny stock of the night?
Well, Scotty kept on saying, where does he go? And that glow stick match with all the glow and stuff, it got me thinking of 90s trance music, and that where do we go? My love, where do we go? Oh,
was that Hathaway?
I think it was Hathaway, actually.
There was 2 different groups.
Survivor Series brought to you by Hathaway, who would have been a much better performer than Hardy. Last night.
Yeah, man. So to me, there's 2. I really tried to narrow this down because I didn't want to do that tie bullshit. But there's 2. And one of them, I don't think it's really his fault. It's just the course of where WWE is going. And the other one is it's just time to give up the ghost. And these two were the main event of the first SmackDown on Fox, and that is
wow,
and Brock Lesnar.
Wow,
Kofi Kingston. It's
don't do it to him, Kris.
Because this is the thing.
Besmirching.
I honestly think that last year in his botch save spot, and this year in his botch save spot, I really do think they could have just ignored it and let it go, and nobody would have noticed. No one would have noticed, or would they have cared? But they did what they did, and if you're 3 times in a row doing it, you gotta stop it now, man. It's just not popping with that anymore. Now this doesn't mean that Kofi can't be rejuvenated and used in another way, but I thought those save spots were getting dumb anyway because he was never in the Final 4 or anything like that. But now it's just getting goddamn ridiculous. So just stop it. as far as Brock Lesnar is concerned, I really do think that I don't think that Brock Lesnar being a penny stock is a bad thing, but I do think that Lashley fills in his void. And I think that WWE has needed a guy to fill in that Brock Lesnar void. And that doesn't mean he doesn't get reactions all the time, but every time he's on TV, it seems like he has to be in a position where he's not just killing like current talent, but just destroying them, So I think that the Lesnar thing, the reliance on Lesnar has been a hindrance. It's been an Achilles heel to WWE.
Right.
And I think that them stepping away from that and just having Lashley, have him getting eliminated from the Royal Rumble in a normal way, and then Lashley just getting eliminated later. I think this humanizes Brock Lesnar. And Brock, of course, he does his best Hulk Hogan crybaby impression after getting eliminated. But at least in the case of Hogan, he beat up the guy that eliminated him, or he tried to pull out the guy that actually eliminated him. But yeah, Lesnar, I think Lesnar and Kofi, man.
Wow.
Can't choose between those two, so I got to pick them both.
Wow. I cannot believe that. I can't believe that you did that to Kofi Kingston, Kris. I'm shocked.
I hate doing it too, because I was all on board with Kofi Mania, but I mean, how many times are you gonna do that stuff?
I'm hurt, Kris. Like, and we will talk about this in the NWA podcast group chat a little bit later tonight. I don't want to air family business on the streets here, but I'm still trying to get myself together, Brent, after Kris gave a penny stock to Kofi Kingston. But I've got a couple folks in mind for a penny stock. And the first people I'm going to give a penny stock to are the New Day. Kofi Kingston and Xavier Woods.
The heel turn by Nate.
Wow.
And here's the thing. It's not specifically because of anything these guys did or didn't do. Because even when Kofi came in last night, you heard that reaction that he got.
Yeah.
Like, people were excited to see Kofi. I agree with Kris that he should have at least made a Final Four one of these years. Even if he wasn't going to win it, just as a show of appreciation for a lot of those moments that he had over the years in the Rumble. But the magic might be gone. I think Kofi even alluded to it last night on the tweet. Like, it might be time for him to, give it up. But I think the New Day, and this goes bigger. This is bigger than Royal Rumble, Scotty. I think for the last year, you could even go back to Big E's injury. Like, after Big E was gone, it doesn't feel like they've really known what to do with Kofi and Woods.
Nope.
And that shouldn't be the case. Like, they don't have to be in the tag team title picture all the time, but these are two of the most entertaining dudes on your roster.
Yep.
And you can't think of anything for these guys to be doing. So I feel like the New Day has been diminished all year, and then last night just kind of leaving a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think the New Day were diminished from last night. I think another person that gets a penny stock for me is somebody we've already talked about, and it's Bray Wyatt. Not speaking to Bray as a performer, but just the story around Bray Wyatt. I give that a penny stock. But maybe the biggest penny stock of the night for me, the person whose stature was diminished the most, Scotty, by their performance at the Royal Rumble last night, was Corey Graves once Pat McAfee came back on the scene. And we saw, because here's the thing, and Scotty and I have had this conversation, like when Pat McAfee first started, I wasn't super high on McAfee, but to his credit, he has not been one of these guys from an outside sport or an outside entertainment field that is using this as a vehicle. He actually loves this stuff.
Yeah, he does.
And it comes through on the commentary. And just hearing him and Cole, as opposed to hearing Cole and Graves, it's like, yeah, like Corey, you cool and all, but you ain't Pat McAfee. You ain't the guy. Like, Pat McAfee brings something else on commentary. So to me, like, Corey Graves, like, just from showing up and doing his job, Scott, Corey Graves was diminished because the other guy decided to show up for work last night.
Yeah.
I think it's great because like he was like I never watch a full College Game Day ever, but when Pat McAfee is on it, it does bring something to it, you know. And I 100% agree with you him being back, Nate.
Yeah, so those are our penny stocks of the night and our final category.
On a side note, Nate, I guess I read somewhere today that I think was it on Insider that Corey Graves and Michael Cole did not know that Pat McAfee was coming last night. Their reactions when Pat McAfee came out were legit.
Okay.
That was not a work. So they wanted him to be surprised because they like Pat. So so that's even cooler that Triple H kind of kept that quiet. Yeah. So I just wanted to
Pat McAfee like makes Michael Cole cooler just by being there, even though like they had that awkward moment where Cole was trying to dap up McAfee and it just completely missed. But I feel like Cole is energized by Pat McAfee and it brings out the best in Michael Cole. So I really like their pairing.
Yep, I agree.
But that brings us to our final category, Scotty. We've done the blue chip stock, we've done the penny stock. Now we've got all this money. We got to pay it forward. And pay it forward is where we talk about where we think some of these stories are going. What are the stories we're most interested in? I think there's probably one story in particular that all of us are the most interested in, but let's hear some other options as well. So, Kris, pay it forward. What are you most looking forward to as we are now on the road to WrestleMania in your backyard, sir?
I'm actually this is a hard one for me to narrow down also because I haven't loved WWE's Triple H era the way everybody else has, but I do see promise in it. And it's a good thing that it's hard for me to narrow it down to one thing. I will say that I think that it's I'm looking. I think what's going to happen with Sami Zayn is they're going to do the next pay-per-view is in Montreal, right?
Yes. Yep.
So he'll
Elimination Chamber.
The Chamber's in Montreal. Yep.
Yeah, and I think Jey Uso is going to pretend to be on Zayn's side and then turn on him and then join up with Jey or join up with Jimmy, and then they're gonna have a match, set up their match at WrestleMania where they'll win the tag titles. And I'm not 100% convinced that Cody Rhodes is beating Roman Reigns unless they
don't start, Kris. Don't start this.
Unless they do a thing where they separate the both of the world titles.
They do need to do that.
It won't happen. I'm not willing to bet my money on it. If you guys are, I can probably be talked into it. I just can't bet on that at the moment.
To Chris's point, I do think they need to split up those titles going forward. It would not surprise me, like if there's some sort of stipulation, because Cody in his promos has always talked about the WWE title, like that's the one he wants to win for his daddy, for his family, and we've also got Roman with this streak, so maybe there's some way they work it storyline wise, Brent, where they split up the titles before Mania, but I think Cody's got to win at Mania, and I just don't know if it's going to be for both or for one. But paying it forward, Brent Chittenden, what story, and you can talk about the Bloodline story or anything else, what stories are you most interested in as we head to WrestleMania?
So I in a perfect world in my head, the idea, because Mania is 2 nights again this year, yes?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think it would in some ways benefits everybody that one night Cody wins, the other night Sami wins. Yeah, because I think the end result of this storyline with Sami, and that's been the one little problem with it from the get-go, is the end result of the storyline with Sami naturally is Sami beats Roman for the belt. Like that should be an end game at some point. And I don't know if that's Mania or if maybe you push it a little farther than that. But honestly, if you do it that way, like Cody beats him and then Sammy beats him the next night, you have the opportunity to let Roman disappear for a while.
Right.
He's been beaten to crap, and then it's like, well, Sammy beat me, but like, come on, you saw what I went through the night before.
Right.
That's not really fair, is it, Sammy? And then he gets another go at it against Sammy and maybe takes that belt back later on. Beyond that, just from a curiosity point of view, what they do with Bray Wyatt and LA Knight is just like what Kris and Scott said is like, where do you go from here? And I think that I think it's a telling note. If you go back to all the shows that we've done where we have done a Bray Wyatt match, I think without fail, one of us says that every single time. It's like, well, now what? and I think that's the problem is there's no foresight. It's almost like, let's just get to the gimmick, and then they get to the gimmick, it doesn't really do anything, and then they're all left with, well, now what? So I'm just really curious to see like how they recover from that, and I'm really want to see them do something with Piper Niven going forward. I really do, and because I think she really deserves it. Don't put her in main event right away, but start working her up there for maybe next year. Like you now at this point you've established her. Keep establishing her. Keep working on it. There's that, and then finally Gunther. Let's figure out a way to get the IC belt off of him and put him in the main event picture at some point.
Right.
Yeah.
Start planning that shit out now.
Okay. Those are solid choices, Brent. I like where you're thinking. Scotty, pay it forward, Scott Criscuolo. What are you expecting as we head down the road to WrestleMania, and why is it Nia Jax defeating Charlotte Flair for that title?
Even better. What's going to happen is the Bloodline is going to throw salt in Cody Rhodes' eyes in that first match. and then he's going to get pinned, and then Triple H is going to run out, and Cody's going to say, go, go, go. And then Triple H is going to beat Roman in 13 seconds. No. All right. We'll start first point. I think this is the easy one. Cody Rhodes is walking out of LA with something.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. I disagree with Brent slightly, not in terms of the matches, but in the terms of the timeline. I think Cody wins both belts. I don't think we're going to see the one Samoan everybody wanted to see last night that didn't come out. I have a feeling we're not seeing him. I think right. Dr. Dwayne is right. I don't think he's going to be in game shape. I think that's true.
Yeah, you need to start on that early too.
Yeah, he should have come out last night if that was the case, which I thought was going to happen. I thought as they were stretching this thing out, I thought right before even any of the Sammy stuff, I thought we were going to start seeing the lightning on the lightning. I thought we were going to start seeing that. When we didn't, I said, well, then we're not seeing him at all then.
Well, I think Rock was going to come out, Scott, but then they had the pitch black match, and it reminded him of Black Adam's box office, and he was like, I'm not doing it.
Hey, let me tell you something right here, baby. Not only did I love the movie so much, I paid for the steelbook, all right?
Right, yeah.
So I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, like that's the biggest debate online right now about the Black Adams with the comic folks. Yeah.
I actually like Black Adam. Like it's not the best superhero movie ever, but I enjoyed Black Adam.
They put my boy Hawkman dirty, though. They turned Hawkman into fucking Batman. Hawkman's not Batman. He doesn't have a jet. He has fucking wings. What's he need a jet for?
What does he need a jet? And that's
exactly.
Maybe he needs to rest his wings, Brent, for long trips.
I know. I like the sidebar. I liked it like fine, and I love Aldous Hodge's Hawkman. I just like He's not rich. He doesn't have a jet.
Yeah.
Why are we doing this? Oh yeah, because we don't have a Batman right now. So
right,
here
exactly.
you go.
Well, there's no black Batman in the DC world anyway. Like, there's no. Black
There is currently in the comic books, good sir.
Who?
There is?
Duke Thomas.
Oh, yeah.
It's,
Okay.
The book is I Am Batman. It's still coming out monthly, I think.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah, I did see that.
Well, that's a debate for another show.
Yeah.
but-
Are you besmirching Aldous Hodge, Chris?
Oh no, I love Aldous Hodge, man. I'm friends with Edwin Hodge, his brother.
Okay.
I used to audition with him back in the early 2000s. You know, he was always beating everybody out for roles, and then Aldous just blew up.
Yeah, Aldous blew up. Friday Night Lights, Leverage.
Oh, I thought you meant Nick.
Leverage is
I thought you meant
fucking
Nick
great.
Aldis blew up. Sorry, I thought you meant Nick Aldis blew up. The only thing that annoyed me about Black Adam was in the post. I mean, it's been out long enough, right? Statute of limitations.
Yes. Spoiler alert.
Okay, is for the first and the post credit when we finally saw it when he first off, the problem is it should have been Shazam that walked through and said, "We have to talk." Having Clark, it was weird. Having said that, for the first time, and this is where we're not going to get into a James Gunn podcast. We'll be here to 3:00 in the morning. The problem is you finally Henry Cavill looks like he's comfortable. He finally,
exactly.
he finally felt like Christopher Reeve in that suit.
It was a great scene.
And now he's gone because James Gunn's an idiot.
Well,
so whatever.
This backstage saga is going to be interesting. Have you done the Black Adam review yet?
No, so spoiler alert for post wrestling, the Black Adam edition of the Rocky Maivia picture show will be out in February. So the hierarchy of podcasts at post wrestling is about to change. Brent Chittenden, because I have assembled an all-star cast that will be speaking about Black Adam, and of course, Kris, if you got time, you're welcome to hop on that one.
Gotta be on this one, and then also because the thing is, there's going to be Black Adam news that drops between now and February. You know, so it's like something you got to stay on top of. You know,
it's crazy. Anyway, all right. So Black Adam wins the Royal Rumble. Oh wait, sorry. Now I'm just pushing up everything. Now we're in the pop culture soup now.
Henry Cavill came out to challenge Cody.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, I think here's what's going to happen. Cody is going to win both belts.
Okay.
Roman's only, my opinion. I first I thought there was going to be two when cousin Dwayne was scheduled. I think you were going to have Cody win one night and Roman beat Rock the other night. Now I think Roman's only wrestling once and he's beating Roman. The next night, we're going to get a little storyline fun. Triple H is going to come out, and let's remember what. Not only did Cody Devontae Rhodes say he wanted the WWE title, but what else did he say? He said he wanted to carry around the Winged Eagle.
Oh, cool.
He did say that he wanted in honor of the old man with the polka dots. Yeah, my son. He wanted to because that was the belt that when his dad was. Because he can't walk around with the Bob Backlund belt. That thing will be ridiculous. But the Superstar Billy Graham belt, I guess. But he wanted to wear the Winged Eagle. So I think the next night on Raw, he's gonna go to Cody and say, okay, one condition though. You know, Roman Reigns held these belts hostage. There was nothing we could do about it. But Cody, I got to make a deal with you. You can have the Winged Eagle as WWE champion. I got to take the Universal belt. We're putting it up in a tournament.
I like it.
That'd be cool.
He gives the Universal belt up, and we have a tournament to decide who becomes the Universal champion. Yeah. I feel like Roman would probably win it back, and I think Sammy beats Roman at SummerSlam.
Ooh,
right.
I think we have a long game for Sammy.
Yeah,
it's a long game.
I have a couple quick questions. Do you all think that if Roman Reigns loses at WrestleMania, I think he might be taking a lengthy hiatus if that
be surprised.
does happen.
Yeah,
Like he's been putting in work since he came back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
and
it's
then-
possible. Yeah.
And then also, I would love for them to bring back the Eagle belt. The only thing is I just don't see a reality where WWE doesn't want that branding front and centered. I'd love to see it though. So
I think we'll get a version of it, right? We
Yeah.
won't get the exact copy, but we'll get whatever the 2023 facsimile of the Winged Eagle would be.
Every other belt, both women's belts have the logo. We all know what the logo is.
yeah.
Chris, you're absolutely right.
With it, man. Shit,
But it's like, we know the logo. Get over it. We know what it looks like. So, but I agree with you. You're right. I'm not saying
And
you're
Vince
wrong.
is looking at you and he's like, "Get the F out, Criscuolo."
Yeah, you know what?
I wanted the Jaguars to win the Super Bowl this year because I hate the Jaguars.
Well, speaking of the Jaguars, we do have a breaking news here. The Super Bowl is set, ladies and gentlemen. It will be in the most well-booked playoff series in a long time. Roger Goodell is in the lead for Booker of the Year. As Mike Mills, friend of the program from Booking the Territories, always says, nobody books a sport better than Roger Goodell. We're going to have the Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes taking on the Philadelphia Eagles and Jalen Hurts in the Super Bowl. Kansas City defeats Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals by 3 points, headed to the Super Bowl. So we've got that to look forward to in a couple weeks. But in terms of looking forward to WrestleMania, guys, I like a lot of what's been said here. I think, Scott, the way you kind of broke that down, I like that a lot, because not only does it free up the championships, not only does it give Cody his moment, but it doesn't put us in a situation where, and this is no shade to Brent, but I feel like if they went Brent's route, you run the risk of undermining either Sammy's win or Cody's win.
Exactly.
Because they're happening so close together.
That's what I think ruined, on a side note, that's what I think ruined it for Cena and Batista at WrestleMania 21. I would have, if they wanted Batista to be the one to have the moment, I still think you should have had the JBL Cena match end in some kind of schmaz. And then 2 months later, when Cena and JBL had that killer I Quit match at Judgment Day, that's when Cena.
Right.
He knows going to get plenty of Mania moments in his life. So as much as we love Sammy, you're going to,
your timeline works out better. Like,
whoever wins Saturday
that way, I agree.
Yeah. Whoever wins Sunday is going to get boned on who won Saturday. Bones whoever. So that's what happens. But one more. I got one more path, Nate. Before you go on, I got a couple more paying forwards. I think that I do think that Sammy, before Sammy gets his Roman moment, I think that Sammy and Cody are going to win the tag titles at WrestleMania. But I think it will be Jimmy and Solo Sikoa as tag team champions, because I think Jay's going to get kicked out.
Interesting.
That's what I think. Was Jay the one that was kind of when Roman first started the Bloodline? Was it Jay that was kind of getting pushed around? All right, I think
that's main event Jay.
Yeah, it's going to go back to that, I think. But here's my other thing. I think that I don't know who Charlotte is going to face for her belt at WrestleMania, because I don't know what SmackDown's women's situation is going to be as over the next couple months. But I do think
probably Ronda, maybe.
Oh God, again. Not again. But I do think, sorry, Nate, I hate to burst your bubble, I do think Rhea Ripley is going to beat your girl Bianca at WrestleMania. And I think, here we go. You might think I'm nuts. I think Theory will become a little babyface-ish, and I think Theory will eventually lose the U.S. title to Damian Priest. And I think if Roman takes time off, the winner of that Universal title tournament will be Finn Balor.
I thought you were going to say Dominic Mysterio.
Oh God, no. Oh my God. Stop trying to make Here's another thing. Let's not make Dominic Mysterio cool, because he's not. He's a doofus. Let's just admit that. Bad hair, no muscle tone, no talent, nothing. But anyway, but that's what I think. I think Judgment Day is going to finally start to galvanize and be the next big faction in the company after Bloodline kind of does this. After Roman leaves, the Usos like I think the whole KO, the combination of KO, Sammy, and Cody and Devontae is going to just kind of disperse the Bloodline. And I think Judgment Day will get their moment, and I think you will see Rhea as Raw Women's Champion. I think Damian Priest will win back the U.S. title actually, and I think Finn Balor will win will win the world title or the Universal title. Speaking, I almost slipped. My one last one, Nate. My one last one. Brent, you were talking about Gunther. Do we all know where Money in the Bank is in July? It's in London. Little international flair at the at Money in the Bank in July.
Okay.
I'll just leave that there for our foreign intercontinental champion.
Okay, Scott. Okay, I see where you're going. I like that. I think, as everybody said, except for Kris, who's out here hating on Devontae after all Devontae's done for the community.
Devontae and Kofi.
I think, we're gonna have to have a talk after the show, Kris. We got to get back on the same page. I think that Cody is going to have his moment at WrestleMania. Like, I think Cody is going to walk out the champion. I said, I don't know if it's going to be both belts, but I do like the scenario Scotty laid out, where he wins both and then has to relinquish one, but he gets his dream of getting that Winged Eagle WWE belt. I like that a lot. I think the other big story that we're going to get coming out of WrestleMania is, again, going back to Avengers, which I had on the other screen for most of the night, Brent, is, that end game for the Bloodline where, we start to see Roman lose the belt and then the Usos lose the tag belts and there's a fracturing within the Bloodline and you got Paul Heyman, Mr. Tribal Chief, I don't feel so good. And everybody starts to kind of fade away a little bit. And, that gives Roman time to go away because, I think people forget, like, this thing has been going on for nearly 3 years, this story of Roman Reigns coming back. He was the babyface nobody wanted. Then he became one of the best heels in the company, one of the best storylines that they told in a long time with this Bloodline saga. And now, we saw the reaction last night after the attack on KO and Sammy. People legit hate Roman Reigns. Right. So I think Roman's going to go away for a long time, relatively speaking. And when he comes back, I feel like Roman will finally have earned, Scott, the babyface run that they wanted for Roman all along.
Right.
Because he had to go through the process. And again, going to Bray Wyatt, trying to be the Undertaker, you can't force these guys into these roles. You can't make Roman Reigns, John Cena, or The Rock just by force feeding him down the audience's throat. You've got to tell a story. And I think they've told a great story with the Bloodline. So I think when Roman comes back, he'll be one of the biggest baby faces in the company. Another person I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go, again, my blue chip stock of the night, Walter. I think Walter is somebody that you can do a lot with. Unfortunately, I don't know what this means for Imperium because I think in the long run, like Kris, it's the Temptations all over again. Like the Imperium are Otis and Walter is David Ruffin.
You love this example. You are so right.
Ain't nobody coming to see you, Otis.
I think what's gonna happen with Imperium, I think, at least I hope. I think Heyman is just gonna go with them and be all about Gunther. And
interesting. So he jumped ship from the Bloodline to Imperium
because he's gonna be without a country and he's gonna need another
Kris.
So why not Gunther? And Gunther isn't the best on the mic, he needs somebody that can be his advocate. And I think that Heyman would be the perfect person to do that.
Okay. I like that a lot, Kris. Another prediction that I have as we head to WrestleMania, I think we're going to see, and I alluded to it earlier, the reformation of the Hurt Business. I think it just makes sense. Like, we've seen breadcrumbs, but it makes sense for a lot of the folks involved. Like, it makes sense for
Right.
Omos, as we mentioned. Like, Omos needs something to kind of ground him and also protect him, right? Like, you don't want to expose Omos in these matches. You know, you
Right.
want him to just be able to come in, be the heavy, get him some seasoning, you know, put some Lowry salt on him, as Scotty was alluding to earlier. It also helps Cedric and Shelton, as well as Bobby Lashley, who I think
Right.
is ready to kind of take that next step and, you know, if not be up on that echelon with Roman and Cody and guys like that, just be right underneath it.
Right.
And then finally, in terms of the women, I do think, much to Scotty's chagrin, we're going to get Ronda and Charlotte at Mania. I think that's, in their mind, that's like the biggest match. Or maybe we get a three-way, because I think, you know, maybe they run that three-way with Becky Lynch back, because Becky's kind of shut out of the Raw women's picture scene, because I do feel like it's going to be Rhea and Bianca at
But
Mania.
there is a story there with Rhea and Charlotte also. You know,
True.
No, there is.
They could do that. I wouldn't put it past them.
They
Right.
could do that, but I feel like Bianca's a more sympathetic babyface than Charlotte Flair.
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And remember, and Rhea's not a sympathetic. Well, even though Charlotte's a babyface, Rhea's not.
Yeah.
She's a heel now. But no, I could.
Yeah.
But I
Never
mean,
know.
I think there's certain ways that you build people that turns them into a baby face. And what they did with Rhea, that wasn't a heel thing they did with her. She won in a fair fashion from the number one position.
Right.
And so, you know, they could do is Charlotte, I don't even know what the hell is Charlotte right now. Is she a face?
She's a babyface, but like by babyface in name only.
Yeah. Like I think
Only because she beat
think-
Ronda.
Yeah. I think Charlotte Flair is always best as a heel.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. I can see in anything, and I can see real. What I will say is I like that none of us are emphatically like know what's gonna happen. You know.
Yeah,
And
well, because the
that's
women,
kinda-
it's so kind of nebulous right now, Chris. Because we've also got Asuka, who had a big comeback last night. We've also got, you know, Damage Control. We've got Becky Lynch, like I mentioned. So there's a couple ways they could go with it.
Right, and they did some good rehab to Asuka too. So
Yes, they did. Who looked awesome last night. Like, Asuka always looks awesome, but I dug how she came out last night. So yeah, I think this is actually setting up to be a good WrestleMania season. Like, I'm actually looking forward to Elimination Chamber, which is not the same reaction that I had coming off of last year's Royal Rumble. And again, like, I don't think enough can be said about how great they've told this Bloodline story. And, you know, we give a lot of credit to Scotty's boy, Triple H, you know, rightfully so, taking over for Vince. But also, like, the story began under the old man. So it's like whoever has been writing this story, and I'm sure Heyman has had a lot of a hand in this, but, you know, to go from Roman coming back, and then we've got the stuff with the Usos. We've got the stuff with Brock, and whose side is Heyman on? We get the Sami Zayn involvement. We get KO. We bring in Solo Sikoa. Like, this is a level of storytelling, Scott and Brent and Kris, that I haven't seen from this company in a long, long time, and it's paid off.
Yep, definitely has.
Like this, it kind of reminds me of like WrestleMania 8 vibes, where there was like all these different guys that you could have put in the main event, like Piper, Macho Man, Undertaker, Sid. I feel like it's not the same shit anymore. I feel like there's a changing of the guard, a much needed changing of the guard.
Right.
Yeah. So to that, I was going to say, did anybody else get that momentary thing when Brock came out for the Rumble? Like, oh shit, Vince works there.
Yeah.
I guess we're going to see how much control he's using.
Right.
And then when he got tossed out, like, okay, good, we're safe for a while.
It was almost like
I'm curious as to how do you make Bobby Lashley, because I think they've tried to drop heel crumbs for Bobby Lashley, but they don't last. You know, it's like it's just he's gonna get cheered when he does something cool.
it was almost like a Vince rib, like like Triple H almost ribbed his father-in-law, like, oh look, I'm using Brock, you love Brock, and oh screw him, he's gone. just like you. He's out of the ring like you're going to be in jail. So, no, I don't know, but whatever. Whatever's going to happen. But that, I mean, I don't know. But it's funny you said that, Brent, because to me, it almost felt like a rib. Like, like Triple H is looking at Vince like, oh, there's Brock Lesnar, Brock Roman, chapter 290. Nah, we're going to throw his ass out. Nah, never mind.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Had that happened, I would have just sent Nate a message for this whole podcast of a statement to read on air.
Yeah.
Brent says, "Fuck this shit."
Yeah.
The only thing that would have made it better was if it would have been Kofi eliminating Brock as payback for that match on the first SmackDown on Fox.
Right.
But we can't have nice things for too long, guys.
No.
Can't have nice toys. Nope.
I mean, Lashley is, if you're talking for the culture, Lashley is.
Well, see, that's the influence of Cody Rhodes. We saw when Cody Rhodes came back, he was like, "No, we're not going to do this, Brock. We have to give other people time to shine, sir."
Yeah.
Yep.
And at least we didn't have Brock eating muffins in the post show conference.
That is true. Getting grumpy. Yep.
But yeah, that was Royal Rumble 2023. I think just talking about it, guys, all of us would say that this was a pretty good show. Like there was some bumps here and there, but for the most part, it was really solid.
Yeah, if you can appreciate this show after last year's show, where Shane McMahon came in the Rumble and beat everybody up.
Shit, I forgot that.
Yeah, that happened, Brent Chittenden.
I was, we were all saying it was a crap Rumble, and I was trying to remember, okay, yeah, it was crap, but why what? Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Like, I think we all tried to put that Royal Rumble in the recesses of our minds because it was just so fucking horrible. And this Royal Rumble was not horrible. And to me, not horrible, because the Royal Rumble, historically speaking, has always, that's a hard match to mess up.
Yeah, you're right.
Found ways to do
that
Chris. In the last few years,
Yeah.
And this one, they just went paint by numbers, and it was just a decent Royal Rumble, man. I can't complain about it, man. No Shane McMahon. You got to take the W's where you could get them.
Yep.
All right. So that is going to bring our show to an end. Appreciate everybody who tuned in tonight or anyone who is listening to this in podcast form in the future, either on the Kings of Sport Patreon or on the Place to Be Nation wrestling feed. Before we get out of here, let's go around the horn one last time and let everybody know where they can find all of our work. And let's start with, again, as I mentioned off the top, the IBF's pound for pound number 2 ranked Chittenden in the world, Brent Chittenden. Where can people find you and all the good nerdy work that you do, brother?
You can find me mainly at True North Nerds. It is a podcast found on all of your favorite podcasting things, or you can go to truenorthnerds.com. That will lead you to the way. We have had Nate on the show in the past. At some point, I've got to have both you and Kris on. I just haven't quite figured out the right match to get you guys in for it. But at some point, we're definitely going to have you both on. Beyond that, honestly, you can check me out at my day job if you want nerdy stuff. If you happen to be in Barrie, Ontario, 45 Essa Road, it is Big B Comics. I sling comic books there Monday or Sunday to Thursday. So if you happen to be in the Barrie area, come on in. I will sell you comics. We have lots of stuff. So there we go. Those are my big plugs for this episode.
Very cool. If you want to, again, if you're in the Ontario area and you need the complete set of Black Adam after you watch the movie, go see Brent. He's your hookup. Holler if you hear him. Kris Ealy, the professor. What you got going on? Where can people find you on social media and any other places that they can be enlightened by the professor?
Right. So you can read me at WrestleNomics, I have had the worst kind of writer's block in like the last couple months. And then I proposed to my girlfriend in December, and that didn't alleviate any stress. Love my fiance, but that just added on stress where everyone's like, well, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, and it's just been like that. And then I'm teaching.
So real quick, Kris, before we go to the rest of your plugs, I just want to let everybody know, because they've been asking me, Kris, what your wedding is going to be like. And I can confirm that it will be exactly like the Teddy Long, Crystal Marshall wedding on SmackDown with Jagged Edge singing "Let's Get Married" and Jeff Hardy in the front row.
Yeah, Jagged Edge, all that stuff, man. Bruce is going to be officiating. So we're doing, like, all I ask my homeboys to do is wear their best pair of Jordans, and that's pretty much it. But then I'm teaching 4 days a week next semester, and I've been teaching from home for the last 3 years, so just diving right in and doing 4 days a week. It's when you've been lazy and teaching from home, and when your classroom has been my guest bedroom, like I'm in right now, it's just been easy peasy stuff. And granted, I'm only going to be on campus for a couple hours, but it's the fact that I have to drive. I work 90 minutes away from where I live, so anyway, look for me at WrestleNomics and on post with the NWA podcast. And then I'm also, I still do stuff with my boys and my girl at True Hill Heat. And just look for me, because I'm on these streets. And then if you're going to be in town for WrestleMania, I don't know if I'm going to WrestleMania, but I'll probably be doing something that weekend. And depending on who asks me, I could find a spot where we can kick it at and chill. And that's about it.
Yes, if you are going to WrestleMania, look up the mayor of LA, Kris from LA, because yes, he knows where the good spots are in Los Angeles. And as long as Omos is not on these streets looking for you, Kris, I think you're gonna have a good time WrestleMania week.
MVP was the one tweeting bullshit at me, man.
Kris is getting into a beef with the entire Hurt business, and I don't think that's a good look, brother.
No, Lashley is nice to me. Lashley is cool to me. MVP, we might have to talk it out or something. I had no clue what that was about.
MVP's gonna show up at Chris's house like Henry Cavill did at the last minute of Black Adam. We need to have a conversation.
We need to have a conversation.
Scott Criscuolo, speaking of conversations, you do a lot of that on microphone. What's going on at Place to Be Nation, and how can the folks find out all of the other work that you do?
Well, thank you, Nate. And, I'd like to, I hope that, unfortunately, I won't be going to WrestleMania, but I will be in LA someday. So Kris and I could finally share that In-N-Out burger. But I would love to have SummerSlam. And how far away, Brent, is Toronto and Barrie? I know nothing about Ontario. So maybe if SummerSlam's in Toronto, I'll find your comic store, because I definitely now want to buy comics from you. That might be the highlight.
45 minutes to an hour.
I don't care. I'll rent a car. We're doing it. You can find me on Twitter at PTB at Scott C. Podfather. Please follow the brand on Twitter at PTBN Wrestling. We do polls. We did a poll about what everyone's favorite San Antonio Royal Rumble was, as expected. 2007 won. We do what I call now the WTT Wrestling Time Travel. Every day I post a tweet, or the brand posts a tweet on what shows happened on that date. And the day we're recording today, January 29th, there were 4 Royal Rumbles. That's a lot. It's more than I thought for the end of January. But
yeah,
we do that every day. Of course, the PTB Wrestling Network, all your great stuff. Love to have all of you guys on for anything and everything. And of course, Nate, depending when this drops later this week, you and me and our good boys, Sheriff Pete and Steve Aloysius Willie, for the next episode of Place B Nation's main event. We'll talk a little bit about Rumble, since we talked a lot about it here. We'll get Steve and Pete's thoughts. Pete was there. And look ahead to this coming Saturday, which will be NXT Vengeance Day. We get the big Braun Breaker, Grayson Waller cage match, and the New Day's wrestling. So there you go. But you can find Pete.
I did guess I forgot that. Like, they have been doing some interesting stuff with New Day on NXT.
Yeah, the wrestler. What is that? Pretty Hurtful or whatever that tag team is. I always forget that.
Yeah.
Pretty Deadly. Pretty Pointless. I don't know. But anyway,
Pink.
Pretty Pink. Great movie. So we will. So we'll preview that and everything else. But please check out placetobe.podbean.com, the PTB Wrestling Network. We have all the great stuff for your pop culture stuff, the PTB Pop Experience, and of course the North-South Connection as well, with the Jenny position in there. They all enjoyed a wonderful weekend in San Antonio. I hope they had fun.
Yes.
So that's where you can find me. And, I'm always talking. Can't shut me up. So so you can find all the best shows there on the Place to Be Wrestling Network, including.
I do have a penny stock before we head out of here. That country singer last night.
Hardy.
Wow, Hardy. Yeah.
Nah, man.
That was the worst Hardy performance since that Victory Road match with Sting.
I was waiting for you know what, Nate? I softballed that one for you because I knew you were going to do it, so I left you that one. Worst performance since Victory. Was it Victory Road 2011? It was Victory Road 2011.
Yep.
Yeah.
Our faces were like Sting's face that night. So
Like,
and that guy's got the #1 country album. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Wrestlers need to perform performers out to the ring, or artists need to perform wrestlers out to the ring, and only that.
Yeah.
The only exception is Mr. WrestleMania Pitbull. Mr. WrestleMania Pitbull, Mr. Worldwide, he can do a performance.
And of course Motorhead, but Lemmy's gone.
Yes. Honestly, that extremely long WrestleMania, and it's hard to, that doesn't give us a lot of context, Brent. But I remember the WrestleMania in Miami where they did Green Light and it was Pitbull and Flo Rida. Like, that was actually a good performance, but the show was way too long. And
then it got ruined by Machine Gun Kelly. So
yes.
Yeah. Well, and he was a local artist too,
Yeah.
Right.
Was he a San Antonio artist? Because they didn't act like he was.
No. If he was, he's not going to be after this show.
They're not going to admit it now.
It's like, I'm moving to Wyoming, guys.
I'm going to look it up. I'm going to look it up for you where he's from. I'm going to look it up while you talk.
While Scott efforts that, I will plug what I've got going on. Of course, you're on the Kings of Sport Patreon. Presumably, if you're watching this or listening to this, sign up. $5 gets you in the door, $5, and you get access to over 200 hours of audio, video content. We've got classic Kings of Sport episodes going all the way back to 2013 on the Patreon feed. We've got shows like TDT Talks featuring Steve Willie, which we did during the pandemic, or the 20 Twin, which was me and Kris talking about the 2020 presidential election. We've also got episodes of Chain Reaction. We've got the backlog of Keep It 100. If you guys enjoyed that show that Brian Mann and I did at Post Wrestling, the Keep It 100 backlog is on the Kings of Sport Patreon, as well as Always Forward, which was a Luke Cage podcast that Brent guested on once upon a time. You can find all those and more at the Kings of Sport Patreon. I'm also, as Scott mentioned, part of Place to Be Nation, the main event. You can check that out every other Friday at Place to Be Nation. Spoiler alert, I don't know if he's announced this yet, but I will be joining Andy Atherton for an episode of Blockbuster Rewatch coming up here pretty soon, where we will be watching, doing a live watch to Black Panther Wakanda Forever, which will be available on Disney Plus February 1st. So I'm excited. Andy and I did the first Black Panther last year, so we're going to do Wakanda Forever here in February. So you can check that out. We've also got Post Wrestling, as Kris mentioned, the NWA podcast, the Rocky Maivia Picture Show, and whenever John and Wade need me, I'm usually there if my schedule allows. You can check that out. And then the final thing I'll plug is the DCTV Podcast Network, where I'm part of the Lituation Room, which was formerly the Black Lightning podcast, and then formerly the Naomi podcast, because the CW keeps canceling shows. But we've got a new episode coming out in February talking about Black Panther and Black Adam, as well as the Quantumania trailers that we've seen. And I'm also, this is breaking news, Brent Chittenden. I just recorded my first episode with these guys today in advance of the HBO Max Green Lantern show that's going to be focused on Jon Stewart. I am now a part of the Green Lantern podcast. So you can check out an episode that we've done. It'll probably be out this week or next week, where we kind of talk about Jon Stewart's history in the comics and also his history in media, whether it's the Justice League cartoon or his appearances on Static Shock or Young Justice, and the movie they put out last year starring Aldous Hodge, bringing it all full circle. Aldous Hodge played Jon Stewart, so you can check that out. But for anything else, find me on Twitter at @8 MOZAIK at Nate Mosaic. And finally, Scotty, do we have an answer to the most pressing question of the night?
Hardy is from Philadelphia. Excuse me, Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Philadelphia, Mississippi.
Philadelphia.
Yeah, there's a few Philadelphias down.
Oh yeah, they're definitely Philly. You know, they're former Oklahoma running back. Oh man, they did a 30 for 30 on him. Why am I blanking? From the early 80s. Oh man,
I know who you're talking about.
Crap. Him. He's from Philadelphia.
He ended up in the USFL, right?
Yeah, he ended up in USFL. I'll look that up now. But
now you got to look that up, Scotty.
Not gonna look that up.
Making more work for yourself.
I know, my God. But he was from Philadelphia, Mississippi. So
yeah, and there's a Philadelphia in Tennessee also.
Yeah.
Yes.
Marcus Dupree.
Marcus Dupree. That's a really good 30 for 30 too.
Yes, it is. He was a stud at Oklahoma, and then his mind got a little messy, and he went back to Philadelphia, Mississippi, and he went in hiding, and then he went to, I think, UAB or something. I mean, it's a good 30 for 30. But yeah, there are some people from Philadelphia, Mississippi that are better than Hardy. So more talent than Hardy. So.
I would argue the majority of the community of Philadelphia, Mississippi is more talented than Hardy, at least based off of what we saw at the Rumble.
Yes, pretty much.
So that's going to do it for this edition of the Chain Reaction. Thanks again for watching or listening. If you want to find anything else out about the shows that are on Place to Be Nation, head over to placetobenation.com. For the Kings of Sport, check out kingsofsport.com or sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/the Kings of Sport. Another one in the books, boys. We might do one around WrestleMania, but that's up in the air depending on if I end up heading out to LA or not. You know, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I'm sure this will not be the last Chain Reaction of the year. No. So we're gonna say goodnight, and I feel like everything's all right in the world, Kris. We got Cody Rhodes back. We got Rhea Ripley having a great performance at the Rumble. The Eagles and the Chiefs are in the Super Bowl, and maybe most importantly, Nia Jax has returned. And on that note, for Scott, for Brent, for Kris, I am the Godfather, Nate Milton, and you've been listening to the Chain Reaction, or watching the Chain Reaction. We'll see you next time.
Peace.